Dorothy Dot King was one of those names that floated through New York's social pages during the Roaring '20s. She was young, beautiful, and always photographed in the right places. Behind that name, though, was a woman who'd come to the city from Philadelphia, born Anna Keenan, trying to reinvent herself. Like a lot of women chasing something better, she built a life out of charm, style, and proximity to money. She modeled, she entertained, and she knew how to work a room. But in early March of 1923, the story of Dot King stopped being about glamour. It became a murder headline. Her maid, Elizabeth Bessie Brown, found her on the morning of March 15th inside her apartment at 144 West 57th Street. Dot was lying on her bed, dressed in a nightgown, her face pale and still. A half-empty bottle of chloroform sat nearby. The apartment was neat. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle. At first glance, it didn't even look like a crime scene. It looked like someone had gone to sleep and never woken up. But the doctors who arrived knew better. The smell of chloroform was strong enough to fill the room. They said she'd been drugged, held down, and suffocated. The police started asking questions fast. Dot wasn't married, but she didn't live like someone who was struggling. Her rent was high, her clothes were expensive, and her jewelry collection would have made a banker's wife jealous. Someone was paying for that life. Within hours, the name Alberto Santos Guimaraes came up, a man she'd been seeing for months. He wasn't the type of man the city's elite liked to talk about. He was charming, handsome, and from Puerto Rico, a man with connections and a reputation for living on other people's money. Guimaraes told detectives he'd seen her the night before. He said she'd been upset, that they'd argued about money. He claimed she wanted more than he could give, and that she'd been nervous about someone threatening her. He said he left around midnight and that she was alive when he walked out the door. The police didn't believe him, not entirely, but they didn't have anything solid either. He was the last known person to see her alive, but there was no proof tying him to her death. Then came the whispers. People said Dot had been keeping company with powerful men, the kind who had a lot to lose if their names got printed next to hers. One of those men was John Kearsley Mitchell III, a Philadelphia financier and the son-in-law of Edward T. Stotesbury, one of the richest men in the country. Mitchell had met Dot months earlier and had reportedly been giving her money. When the story broke, newspapers called him her heavy sugar daddy. The phrase stuck. Mitchell denied everything. He said he hadn't seen her in weeks and had nothing to do with her death. But the connection between them was undeniable, and the papers wouldn't let it go. Investigators combed through Dot's apartment and found letters, notes, and receipts that suggested she'd been trying to hold on to a lifestyle that was slipping away. Her jewelry box was empty, several pieces gone, and her bank account showed almost nothing left. Friends told police she'd been scared recently, that she felt watched. She told one of them she was planning to leave town. That same friend said Dot was afraid of a man with money and influence. For a few days, it looked like the city was going to get answers. Detectives said they had promising leads. They hinted that Guimaraes knew more than he was saying. But when they pressed him again, he clammed up. Without fingerprints, witnesses, or solid evidence, there wasn't much to hold him on. The medical examiner ruled her death homicide by chloroform, but the investigation never reached an indictment. The newspapers kept the story alive longer than the police did. They printed photographs of Dot's face, stories about her clothes, her parties, and her lovers. They painted her as both victim and scandal, a socialite who lived too fast and paid for it. Some reporters suggested blackmail. Others wrote that she'd been killed because she knew too much about her wealthy friends. In the absence of proof, the city filled the silence with rumor. Weeks passed. The missing jewelry was never recovered. Guimaraes was released. The DA couldn't make a case stick. Mitchell retreated to Philadelphia. And just like that, the story disappeared from the front page. A new scandal took its place, and Dorothy King's death became one more unsolved case buried in the city's archives. The details that remain are cold but clear. No sign of forced entry. A bottle of chloroform on the bedside table. A young woman dead in a locked apartment that someone had left quietly. The doorman hadn't heard a sound. The neighbors slept through the night. Whoever did it knew how to move through the city without being seen. Decades later, her story still shows up in old crime files, not because it was solved, but because it captured something about that era. The jazz age wasn't just champagne and dancing. It was a time when women like Dot King could rise fast. but only as long as the men around them allowed it. When the money ran out, the protection did too. Her apartment building still stands on 57th Street, a different kind of luxury now, but the foundation hasn't changed. New York builds over its stories, but the stories stay. Dorothy King's name barely comes up anymore, but for a brief moment, she was the city's favorite scandal, a woman who lived by her own rules and died for reasons no one could ever prove. The file closed without justice, but in a city like this, that's never really surprising. Maybe she was silenced by someone who feared exposure. Maybe it was money, maybe jealousy, maybe both. What's certain is that in 1923, a young woman walked into her apartment alive and never walked out. The police said it was chloroform. The city said it was power.